Okay, folks, this is something I also hate, but it's healthy for the brain. A lot of normal people enjoy doing these, even though a person like me with a high IQ, I still can't do them, folks. I'm not good at them and I just can't do them very well. But basically, a lot of normal people like to stretch their somewhat relatively small brains and use this thing called neuroplasticity. They like to go on about that, how they can train their brains to be more powerful, even though in my books they come across as monkeys, normal people as monkeys, not a racial or a homophobic slur, but just because they're not as smart, and they just I don't know, I just don't like the culture of normalcy. And this is it. These are just ripped off. These are a bit ripped, but basically these are Sudoku puzzles. And there's an interesting story about Sudoku I'd like to share. I have heard that Sudoku is good if you want to become a photocopier technician. They're good training for that kind of work, strangely enough. I read about it somewhere. I don't know where I read it, but basically they said that that this is good if you want to be a photocopier technician. I was never a good technician anyway, so maybe that's where the connection is. That I don't do very well in what was my chosen field. That looks really quite interesting. It looks a bit backgroundy still. I just still want to get rid of some of that shading. But yeah, Sudoku puzzles, they remind me of trying to become a photocopier technician, trying to think like one. But I can't do it, folks. I just don't have the ability to with Sudoku or puzzles in general. And I have memory problems. I had a cord around my neck and I came out breech. And I believe this is my primary disability is having come out with a cord around my neck and having oxygen starved out and nearly dying. My mum used to always tell me that I came out breech as well as having a cord around my neck, which you could say is double trouble. I've had problems learning at school. I've had problems learning new things in general, holding down a job, studying at TAFE. All these things have been affected because I believe my short-term memory and my hippocampus have been damaged, and I read that on Google somewhere that these are the parts of the brain that are most sensitive to oxygen starvation, apparently. Now that's too wishy-washy. I didn't want that too light. But yeah, it's like, because I have that brain damage, there's not much you can do with it. There's not much neuroplasticity if you don't have enough neurons of certain types. So if you've got problems with your hippocampus, really bad ones, well, forget about trying to learn. I'm basically a talented photocopier artist. I found that my talent as a photocopier artist hasn't been severely impacted, which I'm really grateful for. But I can't be a technician anyway because of the disabilities. And basically, it's really sad I can't be a technician, however much I wish I could. Feels like I'm going to sneeze any moment. Just going to catch myself on camera sneezing. Sorry folks, I disappointed you. I don't really want to sneeze all over the lens anyway. Maybe it was a good thing. I nearly sneezed. Now that looks shit house. I do think this version's better. But basically, it's recommended that Sudoku is good for training you to helping you to become a technician, a photocopier technician. So I think it was some careers related thing I was reading a while back, which the thing is, if I didn't have the brain damage, I also do believe I have high functioning autism, which used to be formerly known as Asperger's syndrome, And that's responsible for the high functioning parts like this photocopier art and the passion I have for the equipment that I use, even though it's substandard by my standards. But basically, yeah, I'm really good at this, and I'm really passionate, and I'm really clever at this, and I'm trying to focus on this instead of the disability. And I don't consider the high functioning autism a disability really in this case. In school it was, because I got teased and bullied because of it, but I'm away from that horrid place. I'm doing my own thing now, and basically I'm not going to take shit from anyone, and basically, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm good at, trying to get on the 6 o'clock news on Channel 9, and I want to show the world that I'm talented despite being disabled. I don't want my disability to have the final word, folks, and that's come up looking really quite nice. I don't want my disability having the final word. It's got to be shouted down, the intellectual disability. I have got another disability in which I got my Centrelink entitlement to the disability support pension. And basically I can't talk about that disability which has been fully diagnosed. I can't talk about it because it's got a stigma attached. Some things are a bit stigmatic still, and I can't talk about this. But basically it's quite a problem as well. But I find that the intellectual disability and the high functioning autism, they've both not been diagnosed. I'm hoping to get a diagnosis one day, but it would have been nice if I was at school and they could have diagnosed me back then, because I had a lot of pressure applied on me because my intellectual disability, as you know, stops me from learning, and when you can't learn very efficiently, it actually becomes quite frustrating, and you just lose your temper. You just lose your fucking cool, and you just blow a fuse and say, I can't do it, it's too hard. I think it goes... Yeah, I can't do it, it's too hard. I used to say that a lot when I was a kid, especially I did go to special school for a few years, and they didn't diagnose me with this intellectual disability. I mean, shame on them. And they too thought I had an attitude problem to learning. And it was really, really stressful, folks. As a kid and as a teenager, having all these expectations placed on my shoulders, and I was expected to be good at being a social as well. And I got teased and bullied, and it really hurt me, really cut me up. People hated me so much that they just wanted to tear me apart. And I just wish I had the diagnosis of these conditions, because it would have just made things a lot easier for me. It would have given my parents a clear explanation as to why I was the way that I was. But no, it didn't happen. I fucking have to carry the burden and have to deal with the ramifications of being labelled a troublesome student in so many words. The teachers did like me, don't get me wrong, they were nice, but I really hated, especially in high school, handing over my school reports to my parents, and even worse, the parent-teacher nights. I managed to always prevent my parents from going to that because I was terrified, absolutely terrified that I was going to get into deep shit with my parents. So I really had pressure applied from all angles, folks. So yeah, there's been some fucking damage. Well, there you go, that's why, because of that shit. But they didn't have a diagnosis for the high-functioning autism back in the mid-80s, early 90s. I was discharged from the school back just before the 90s, but it was around that time and they didn't have it. So, but now they do, but they could have diagnosed my intellectual disability, which would have been better. And that's come up looking really nice. I think we can now call this demo quits.